So this is how you plan to cut me out of my own future? That was the very first thing that came out of my mouth the night everything began to unravel. And honestly, I'm still not sure whether I meant it as a question or an accusation. Maybe both. What I do know is that the look on her face, wide-eyed, startled, almost offended that I'd dare to confront her, was the moment I realized something inside me had quietly snapped. There are shocks that hit you all at once, like cold water over the head. And then there are the slow, creeping ones that settle into your bones long before you notice them. Mine was the second kind. Before we get started, be sure to subscribe to Family Tales by Ethan so you never miss out on these fascinating stories. And let us know what you're watching today in the comments. My name is Aaron Miller, and for most of my life, I've been the kind of guy people describe as dependable, steady, patient, maybe even dull. I never minded. In my world, discipline meant survival, and survival meant giving up a lot of things most people my age took for granted. 6 years of extra warehouse shifts, 6 years of eating meal prep chicken, and driving a beat-up Honda with a door you had to slam twice to make it close. While my friends flew to Cabo or Miami, posting cocktails and ocean sunsets, I was at home rinsing Tupperware and triple-checking my budget spreadsheets. But it wasn't for nothing. I had a goal. Our goal, or so I believed. A house. A place where I could finally exhale and stop white-knuckling my way through life. My girlfriend at the time, Jessica, loved talking about the fantasy as much as I did, maybe even more. We'd stand in my tiny apartment kitchen, her barefoot on the cool tile, waving a paint sample like she was already redesigning the living room in her head. "This warm gray," she'd say, "this is what peace looks like." I'd laugh, not because she was being dramatic, but because it was the kind of dream I wanted to believe in. From the beginning, we were opposites. She worked in digital marketing, always put together, always smelling like expensive perfume and fresh coffee. I worked long hours at a logistics warehouse, came home covered in dust and sweat, and counted every penny like it mattered, because it did. She loved bottomless brunches. I loved the idea of not dying broke. She spent freely. I saved obsessively. "Balance," she'd say with a smile. "You're the anchor, I'm the sail." It sounded romantic back then. Maybe it was. Or maybe it was the first crack forming in a foundation I didn't know was already crumbling. Still, for 4 years, we built a life together, or I thought we did. She moved into my apartment 2 years in, bringing a closet full of clothes and a chaotic energy that somehow made the place feel warmer. She'd tease me for my old furniture. I'd tease her for her impulse spending. We'd joke about the future, about how one day we'd have a backyard big enough for barbecues, a guest room for her sister, maybe even a dog if I could be talked into it. So when we found the house, 3 bedrooms, 2 baths, a quiet neighborhood with old trees and kids riding bikes, it felt like destiny finally giving us permission to breathe. I'd saved $80,000 for that moment. Every sacrifice, every Tuesday night shift, every missed vacation was supposed to end at that front door. Jessica told me her cousin, Tyler, worked at a mortgage company and could get us an amazing rate. She insisted she handle the paperwork, said she had more flexible hours, and wanted to take one big thing off my plate. I thanked her, genuinely touched. I gave her everything. Pay stubs, bank statements, tax returns. Because when you're building a life with someone, trust is the currency you don't track. But trust can also blind you. And mine did. The day the rug was pulled out from under me wasn't dramatic. Not at first. It was a phone call at work, drowned out by forklifts and steel pallets clanging in the background. A woman from the title company asked if I could confirm that the $82,000 transfer was a gift with no expectation of repayment. She said my name wasn't on the application, wasn't on the title, wasn't on anything. I don't remember breathing. I don't remember speaking. All I remember is a cold, sinking heaviness settling somewhere deep behind my ribs. When Jessica came home that evening, arms full of paint samples, humming excitedly, the silence between us felt like a chasm. I asked her calmly, almost too calmly, why my money was being used to buy her house. For a split second, her smile froze. Then she launched into a flurry of explanations, typos, misunderstandings. Tyler said it'd be easier this way. She forgot to tell me. She meant to tell me. She was protecting us. She was surprising me. Every story contradicted the last. Every excuse felt like a rope pulling tighter around my chest. And as she talked, something inside me shifted. Slowly, quietly. like a crack widening into a break. I didn't yell. I didn't throw anything. I didn't call her names. I just said two words. Interesting paperwork. Her eyes widened at that, because she knew. She knew I'd seen behind the curtain, that the version of us she'd been performing was collapsing in real time. That all the little details she'd kept hidden, all the omissions, all the carefully curated half-truths, were finally catching up. She slept on the couch that night. I didn't sleep at all. I lay in the dark, staring at the ceiling, listening to the faint sound of her trying not to cry. And for the first time since we'd met, I felt completely, terrifyingly awake. I didn't know yet how far the fallout would reach. I didn't know the lies would stretch deeper, the consequences heavier, the devastation wider than anything I'd prepared myself for. But I knew one thing. Whatever story Jessica had been building, whatever future she thought she could shape without me, this was the moment it began to unravel. If the first crack appeared the night Jessica tried to brush off the title company call, then the morning after was when the entire structure finally gave way. I don't think I've ever woken up with such a heavy clarity, an uncomfortable, almost metallic certainty that nothing about the life I thought I was building was real. Not in the way that mattered. Not in the way that should have protected me. When the sun edged through the blinds, I didn't feel anger so much as numb resolve. The kind that settles in when you've been pushed past a line you didn't even know existed. My apartment still smelled faintly of her perfume, lavender and vanilla, and the couch cushions were dented where she had curled into herself. Jessica was already awake, pacing silently when I walked into the living room. Her eyes were swollen, mascara smudged, like she'd spent the night bargaining with a version of reality she couldn't manipulate into something gentler. "Aaron, please," she whispered, voice trembling as if she expected me to crumble at the sound of it. "Let me explain again." Tyler said, "I'm not interested in anything your cousin said." I cut in. My voice was quiet, but something in it made her flinch. I wasn't yelling. That seemed to scare her more. I called the title company first, then the bank, then my attorney. Each call felt like peeling away one of the many layers of denial she had wrapped around the situation. With every confirmation, yes, her name was the only one on the documents. Yes, my transfer could be stopped. Yes, she would be solely liable for the contract. I felt my spine straighten a little more. By the time I hung up, Jessica was sitting on the edge of the couch, hands clasped so tightly the knuckles were white. "You're ruining everything," she whispered. "You don't understand how bad this looks for me." "For you?" I asked, almost stunned. "Jessica, you tried to buy a house in your name using my savings. What part of that do you think looks good for me?" Her eyes filled again, and she stood suddenly, pacing the small space in front of the coffee table. "It wasn't like that. I was going to add you after. Why can't you just trust me?" "Because you didn't trust me," I said plainly. "Not once. Not at any point during the last 2 months." She stopped pacing then, and for a moment, everything went quiet. The kind of quiet that feels like the world taking a breath before something breaks. When I told her I was canceling everything, she froze. Completely. Like the words had hit her harder than she expected. "No," she said, shaking her head. "No, no, no. You can't do that. We already told everyone. My parents, your mom, my coworkers, they all think we're closing on Friday." "That's not my problem," I replied, maybe a little colder than intended. "You lied. You tried to control the entire process behind my back. That's on you." Her face twisted, a mix of disbelief and panic. "Aaron, please. I know I messed up." I panicked, "Okay? I thought if the loan didn't go through because your credit wasn't as strong, you'd blame me. I don't know. I thought this would make things easier." "That's not how mortgages work," I said quietly. "It's how Tyler said it works." "Tyler is not a mortgage expert." I snapped before I could stop myself. "He's a guy who once tried to sell protein shakes as an investment opportunity." Jessica's lip trembled, but instead of backing down, she hardened. "You're doing this because you want control. Because you always want control. The money makes you feel powerful." I stared at her, stunned at the mental gymnastics. "I saved that money for years. You hid an entire house purchase from me. But somehow, in your head, I'm the one trying to control you?" She didn't answer. She just folded into the couch again, curling up like a child bracing for a storm. When her parents began calling, I let every call go to voicemail. I couldn't bear to hear the disappointment in voices that didn't know the full story, voices that would likely never believe it anyway. Because Jessica had always been the golden one, the charismatic one, the one who could spin a story so convincingly you'd thank her for lying. I left the apartment to breathe, walking around the block twice before returning. She was sitting in the same spot, staring at nothing. When she heard my keys, she shot up like a spark had hit her. "Aaron, let's just talk. Please. This doesn't have to be the end. We can fix it. Just wire the money. We'll add you to the title after." "I swear." "Jessica," I said, and for the first time, her name felt foreign in my mouth. "I'm not giving you a cent." Her face broke then, actually broke. "So that's it. For years, and this is what I get." "You get the consequences of your choices," I said. "All I'm doing is stepping out of the crossfire." Her hands clenched into fists. "I'm calling my dad," she said shakily, as if the words themselves carried the power to reverse everything. "Go ahead," I said, and the calm I felt was terrifying even to me. When he arrived, red-faced, booming, ready to lecture, I didn't engage. I didn't raise my voice. I didn't justify myself. I simply stated the facts. The truth. And the truth was so much uglier out loud. Her father's expression shifted as I explained, but he never let his indignation falter. "She was trying to surprise you," he said through clenched teeth. "People in relationships do things like this." "No," I said. "People who respect each other don't." Jessica cried harder then, burying her face against her father's shoulder like she was the victim of some unexpected tragedy rather than the architect of it. They left together, slamming the door so hard a picture frame rattled loose on the wall. When silence finally returned to the apartment, I stood there feeling strangely hollow, like someone had scooped out the person I used to be and left only the shell. A shell that understood one very important thing. Love can blind you, but betrayal, real betrayal, never sneaks in quietly. It arrives loudly, shattering everything you thought you knew, forcing you to rebuild from pieces you didn't realize were already broken. And this was only the beginning. I wish I could say the aftermath settled into something clean, something with smooth edges, something that let me step away quietly. But that isn't how people like Jessica operate. The kind of person who can convince herself that using someone else's life savings is a misunderstanding isn't the kind who lets consequences land without a fight. Or 10. The days after her father stormed out of my apartment felt like walking through the wreckage of something I hadn't realized was already collapsing. Every few hours my phone would buzz. Jessica, her mom, her sister, an aunt I barely remembered meeting. Each message carrying the same tune. "Fix this. Send the money. Make it right." As if I were the one who had created the mess. As if her lie had somehow become my responsibility the moment I refused to quietly fund it. By Friday, the original closing day, I'd already blocked half her contacts. I took the day off work, not because I needed rest, but because I needed distance. I sat in a dim booth at a bar on the edge of town, watching muted sports highlights while sipping a beer that tasted flatter than usual. It wasn't joy or relief I felt, just the strange stillness that comes after a hurricane. Debris everywhere, but the air suddenly quiet. Around the time the closing would have happened, my phone lit up with a flurry of messages. Jessica's name appeared over and over. Her frantic texts came in rapid bursts. "The deal fell through. I lost the earnest money. The seller is threatening to sue me. This is your fault. Please, please, just send the money." I stared at the screen until the bartender asked if everything was okay. I told him I was fine, though I don't think either of us believed it. I typed the shortest reply I could manage. "No." That single word became the boundary I clung to when the chaos escalated. By Sunday, I had changed my locks. My landlord didn't ask questions. Small towns are like that. Word spreads, even when you don't want it to. People knew something was wrong long before I explained anything to anyone. Then came the unexpected visits. The first was Jessica's best friend, storming into the warehouse during my shift like she had every right to disrupt my life. She marched straight to me, heels echoing off the concrete, her face sharp with misguided loyalty. "You're disgusting," she hissed. "She gave you 4 years of her life." I didn't put my clipboard down. "You mean the 4 years where I saved money she tried to steal?" "She didn't steal anything. You live together. That makes it basically joint property. That's not how any of this works." She scoffed, stepping closer. "You know what? She was going to break up with you anyway. After she got the house, she told me you were dead weight. No ambition." I actually smiled then, not because it didn't hurt, but because it finally made everything make sense. Then I guess I saved her some time too. The friend left cursing at me while security walked her out. I stood there afterward, breathing in the dusty warehouse air, letting her words settle like sediment in water. It stung, yes, but it also clarified something sharp and necessary. Jessica had never wanted a partner. She wanted an asset. The next week felt like a parade of small fires. My Instagram got flagged. Someone attempted to log into my email from out of state. My car insurance contacted me about an accident I'd never been in. Someone, obviously Jessica, was trying to shake the ground under me, hoping I'd fall just enough to reach for her again. So I tightened everything. Passwords, accounts, two-factor authentication. I locked down my life the way someone might lock the doors in a storm. But the worst moment wasn't digital. It was the night I came home and found her sitting on my couch. I froze in the doorway, keys halfway out of my hand. I had changed the locks. The landlord had given me new keys. Yet there she was, like a ghost of the person I used to love, hair messy, face pale, clutching a throw pillow like armor. "You need to leave," I said immediately. "5 minutes," she begged. "Just 5. Please." I kept my back against the door. "Talk from there." She swallowed hard, tears already forming. "I messed up. I know I did. But it wasn't malicious. Tyler said it'd be easier with just my name. And maybe I liked the idea of having something that was mine. That something," I said, "was bought with my money." She wiped at her cheek. "You always controlled the money. You're so careful, so strict. I wanted to feel like I had something in this relationship. So you decided to steal a house." Her breath hitched. "I wasn't stealing. I was protecting myself." I had no words for that. A moment where logic simply couldn't penetrate the kind of delusion she'd built around herself. Then she switched tactics, desperation clawing through her voice. "I'm losing everything, Aaron. The seller wants $35,000. My credit tanked. I might have to declare bankruptcy. I can't even rent an apartment now. My parents barely talk to me." And I asked quietly. She stared at me like I was a stranger. "I need help. Just 20,000. I swear I'll pay it back. I'll sign anything." "No. Please. Please, Aaron. No." Her face twisted then, ugly, raw emotions surging through every line. She screamed, snatched a pillow off the couch, threw it at me like it weighed more than it did. She hurled every insult she could grasp, her voice cracking under the strain of her unraveling narrative. I called the cops. She ran before they arrived, but I filed a report anyway. A line drawn in something heavier than sand. Days later, a court summons arrived. She was suing me, claiming the money was a verbal gift, that we had an implied agreement. My attorney laughed so hard he nearly choked. But court was its own surreal theater. Her lawyer, young, nervous, completely outmatched, argued we were basically married. My attorney handed the judge bank statements, leases, messages where she herself called it my down payment. The judge ended it in minutes. Case dismissed. With prejudice. Outside the courthouse, her parents confronted me, her dad furious, her mom sobbing. They blamed me for everything. The settlement she now owed, the retirement funds they pulled to help her, the shame she'd brought onto herself. Every sentence dripped with resentment and denial. "Why would your retirement be involved?" I asked. Her dad looked away. That was answer enough. I walked away while her mom cried into her hands. But it wasn't over. She showed up at work weeks later, rage, desperation, heartbreak all blending into something fragile and unrecognizable. "You ruined my life," she said, clutching my arm. "No," I replied. "You ruined your own life. I just refused to sponsor it." Security pulled her away while she sobbed my name. And even then, even after everything, her final message, sent from a new number late one night, wasn't venom. It was something far worse. "I'm sorry. I thought I was protecting myself. I didn't see it as stealing. I ruined everything. I don't expect forgiveness. I just needed you to know." I read it. I blocked the number. Not out of anger, but because some stories can't be repaired. Some choices can't be undone. And some endings are just that. Endings. These days, the $80,000 is still in my account. I'm looking at smaller homes now, something I can afford on my own, without anyone else's hands near the foundation. I sleep easier. I breathe deeper. I don't feel victorious, just steady. Jessica is living with her parents, working off debt, fighting consequences she built with her own hands. And maybe someday she'll learn something from all of this. But it won't be a lesson I'm responsible for. My attorney once asked if I felt good about the outcome. I told him I didn't feel good. I didn't feel bad. I felt finished. There's a strange freedom in that, a quiet, weightless truth. Sometimes protecting yourself isn't heroic. It's simply refusing to be destroyed.